Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a super special video. I have my friend here who is also a client, and we spent a lot of time together in a short span of a few months from her being in Africa. But I'm going to let our guest introduce herself. You guys are in for a phenomenal video today, so let's just jump into it.
Yes, hey, shalom, sis. I am Jakell. My family and I have been in Tanzania for 5 months now. And in that time, we've been able to
Wow.
develop a good friendship. So here, yeah,
Wow, 5 months. So, how did we meet? Because we were in
yeah. So
contact a little bit before you guys came. And you guys, I know
yes,
I messaged you in Dream Life Africa, like, hey, can I send you these blanket quilt things so I can have something to crochet? I was so
yeah.
excited for that, by the way. And I've used all of the fabric, and I have these blankets
Really.
that I forgot to show you. I'm gonna have to send you a picture.
Okay. Yes, please do. Yeah. So, back in what was it, 2022? Yes, 2022, fall of 2022. My husband and I, we had just had our third child. And we were in the process. We had basically decided, okay, we know that we're either going to plant in Atlanta and be closer to like family, or we're going to move overseas. Like that was just kind of the space we were in.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so that fall we had our baby, sold our home, moved in with my in-laws, leaning more towards Africa than Atlanta, but just being open-minded, just seeing how
Wow.
the Most High would move. And, we came I have been following you for time, and, we bought your, what's the course called? Like Journey to Africa, Journey to Africa,
Dream Life
course.
Africa.
And Dream Life Africa, yes, yes, yes. That's what we bought, which was, like, super, super helpful. We went through that program and just started, like, just put all the things together that we needed to make the transition here. And so as my husband, so that was fall of 2022. May of last year, May 2023, my husband, my father-in-law, and a few other guys, all came to Tanzania. And, it was then that my husband met your husband,
Right, right.
and from there, we just kinda chatting and just talking about, just making the transition over here. And that's where, I was able to get you a couple of things over here while we was packing and, um,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
so that was like the beginning was just us transitioning to Tanzania. Yeah,
Wow, wow. It seems like so long ago, 2022. How's life in Africa
right,
going
it's
for you guys right now, being here 5 months?
yeah, it's been interesting. It has its highs and its lows. I'll say, um, some of the challenging things is, a misunderstanding. People have their
Yeah,
preconceived ideas of who we are as Americans and not knowing the language fluently. We're learning, but we're not fluent yet. So, and just like the cultural lag, like just still learning the culture here, you just feel like you're like, I can't really express myself the way I desire. And I feel like I'm
sure,
kind of being
sure.
misunderstood. Um, but man, I always tell people like, Africa, like there's no perfect place. Africa isn't heaven. Um, but Africa has given me peace and it's
Yeah,
given me time. And I think
wow.
the peace comes from the simple life here, you're just not that hustle culture is just not here at all. For
Yeah,
better or worse.
yeah,
Hustle culture is like not here at all.
yeah,
And what was the other thing? Yeah, and because I'm not constantly worried about the next paycheck, I'm not worried
yeah,
about, um, just, you don't have, 10 things going at one time. You're just focusing on one thing at a time here. And so it just gives me time to be present with my family, to be present with myself, to be present with the Most High. Um, and I'd say that that's the biggest commodity, right? I think we
it
all
is.
strive to make money so that we can buy time,
Right,
Um, and
exactly.
it has just
Wow, that's incredible after 5 months. So you have been doing phenomenal with your writing because you posted a few of your blogs in the chat yesterday for Write Your Way to Revenue. And I read it and I was like, wow, I have all the feels about this travel blog that you wrote. And it was just like, oh, nostalgia. Like I just really, it was so good. And I'm gonna share it down below at the link in the description so people can read it because it's incredible. So how long have you been a writer? How did you get into writing?
Yeah, so, I actually, wrote a blog about that too, um, but I got into writing back in 2017,
Wow.
really because of a dream. Um,
Wow.
what happened was I was in a really difficult season of life. My husband and I had been married for a few years, and we were trying, and we were having a hard time trying.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I have this dream, and in this dream, I see myself at a computer typing up this
Wow.
story. Story was about some miscarriages that I had. So I'm typing up the story,
Okay.
and I see that it somehow it just gets published on this really popular Christian website, and I was just like, "That's wild," Like I don't have any contacts to
Wow.
this company. I don't have a blog. I've never written anything. I've never published anything.
Wow.
But it was the first time that I had actually had a prophetic dream. I was too scared to say it
Wow.
at the time,
That's beautiful.
but I yeah, but I knew it was different. And so I go to write, and I only knew one author at the time. She was actually a nurse by trade, and I was a nurse, so that's how we
Like
knew
you,
each other. We
yeah.
went to this. Mhm. And but I knew that she was a writer. And so I just kinda text her, like, in faith, just like, "Lord, like, I'm gonna share this with her, and if she thinks it's good, then she can help me get it published, I guess? I don't know. I'm just
Wow.
gonna text
Wow.
her, let her read it, see what happens," and then 6 months later, it gets published. The first thing I ever write gets published,
Wow.
and she was the one that really was like, "I don't know if you've ever been told this, but you really do have a gift for writing," and so that was
Yes.
where it really started. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and so I ended up actually getting pregnant, like, right after writing that story,
Oh, okay.
and had 3.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
The Most High is
and I
amazing.
ended up he is, man, he's just so good, and so by the time it got published, I was actually pregnant with my son, and then I go on to have 2 more kids, so through the and also during that time, we had moved, so I moved from Georgia to Tennessee, and so I wasn't able to really get to my writing started. It was kind of just on and off from 2017 up
Okay.
until this last fall, when I took your class. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember because you used to come over to our house sometimes, we would just have, like, a mom and children date type of playtime, and, I had posted about Write Your Way to Revenue on YouTube, and you're like, "Hey, sis, I might check out this class." At that time, I didn't know that you were even a writer. I didn't know that you had any interest in writing. I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool, that's good." So, tell me more
Yeah.
about that process. When you saw Write Your Way to Revenue on the YouTube community post, what were you thinking?
Yeah, so I had actually seen you post it before,
Okay,
but we were living I was living in my in-laws' basements. It just was like I wasn't in the
okay,
space to start
okay.
a career at that. Um, and so I saw you post it again, and I was like, "John, like, I think I really wanna, like, pursue writing." It's something that I had been wanting to do, but, just with life circumstance, it just didn't feel like I just
Yeah,
had the space. And
yeah,
so we had to move here, when we started hanging out and having our, like, mom play dates, um, I'd only been here for, like, 4 to 6 weeks, And so I
yes,
was a bit
yeah,
nervous because I was like, "Man, I just got here, like, is this wise?"
right.
Um, you know? But, John just really encouraged me, my husband, he just really encouraged me and was like, "I think
Yeah,
you should go for
yeah,
it." And I mean, what else am I doing here? There's a lot that I'm doing, but there's also a lot that I'm not doing. So I
yeah,
had the
yeah.
space. Yes, yes. After talking with John, it just seemed like it was the right time. So I just took the leap of faith and I just took the class.
Wow, wow. So once you got inside the class, were you shocked? Were you overwhelmed by the information? What were you thinking as you were going through the course? Because it was like a 2-day workshop, but it was over a span of 2 weeks. So what shocked you? What do you remember most about going through that process for those 2 weeks?
I I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that I received was mm, learning all the avenues that I could make money writing. I think before taking the class, I was pretty much accustomed to just understanding blogging. Um, and how to like write that way. But I mean, you outlined, I don't even remember all of them, but you outlined a lot of different ways to make money writing and also talking about the different industries that you can make some good money in writing and trying to, kind of figure out a way to do what kind of style of writing that builds the kind of business that you want. So, like learning all those different and them together to start was probably the biggest shocker too. Like I really didn't realize just how many ways you could make money writing. Like there's just a lot of ways.
Yes,
um,
writing, it's incredible. There's so many different opportunities out there.
mm,
And then what are you doing
mm,
right now with your freelance writing? Because you hit the ground running. Like, I think you accomplished a lot in a short span of time. After like just 30 days, you're like, hey, I found a client. Like, amazing. Like, you took the course material, you ran with it, you got to writing your portfolio, you did every step, and you were so consistent
yeah.
with it. And then you got results fast.
So I definitely like really hit the ground running at that time. I really was trying to push myself within because I think the classes were they 2 weeks apart? The two
Yep,
sessions?
yep,
So I really was striving to like I really the first session you had like a list of things for us to do, and I was really striving to like have those things done before the second session so that I can keep going and keep that momentum.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and so I just wanted I think I just wanted to keep riding on that wave of momentum, that initial,
Wow,
excitement, and just all the excitement and energy that you have when you first start something. I really wanted to take advantage of that. Um, so I was spending probably too much time at the beginning, if I'm honest, just learning everything I could about specifically copywriting. That was the one thing that
yes,
stuck out to me.
yes.
Um, learning the difference between content and copywriting,
Yep,
and I just and I think what what I found myself having to decide was I can be a blogger and I can do content writing,
mhm,
but it's probably going to take a little bit longer for me to see the kind of results that I want,
right,
because it takes longer to build kind of
it
brand, to
does.
build the audience, and it takes longer to make revenue that way. Um, but when I learned about copywriting and when you showed us different examples, and especially that second session, you showed us different examples of copywriting. I was like, "Oh, wow. Anything having to do with marketing is going to make more money.
Yeah,
Anything if you're
yep,
selling something, you're going to inevitably make more money." So I really had to say like, "Okay, I can either." It would be easier to start blogging because it's just a more natural form of writing for almost
right,
anyone, or I can take the time to learn marketing, to learn copywriting now, and I can start reaping the financial benefits sooner. Um, and I
yes,
think that yeah, and so it has been challenging to learn a new skill set because it's like feeling like a freshman all over again. You're just like, "Oh, I
yeah,
don't really know what I'm doing." You just feel that freshman like vibe. But if you can push through that and learn how to market yourself, my thought was, okay, I learned copywriting, I learned how
mhm,
to promote other businesses through writing. Then eventually as I continue to pray through my own passions and my own gifts,
yes,
maybe that book that I want to write or that coaching
yes,
thing I've always wanted to, I'll have the skills to actually market myself because I've been doing it for other companies, right? So that
exactly.
was kind of like the mindset that I had. So yeah, so I started I think you actually recommended HubSpot Academy. I
Yes,
started
they're
HubSpot Academy.
phenomenal.
Yes, and I did I think 3 different courses on HubSpot. Got certified in it. I did my resume exactly
Yes,
like you said, did my website like you were explaining in the
yes,
course,
yes,
and and yeah, and I just hit the ball running. And I think this is true of most companies and small businesses, especially something like this, where you're marketing a service to other people. It's much
mhm,
easier to start it through your network. Um, you
exactly.
know,
Yeah,
So my first 2 clients were within my network, and I actually just landed my first I don't wanna say real client because all of them are real, but my first client that was a cold
Larger.
pitch, you know, I and I
Yes,
landed my first
yes, that's awesome.
pretty incredible, you know, I'm what is it? Yes, it's February now, so it's like I've been doing business for 90 days, and I've landed 3 clients in 90 days, with one of them actually being someone that's not even work, so,
Man,
yeah.
incredible. What a beautiful journey. And so, with freelancing, freelance writing, and your move to Africa, and then spirituality, how do all of these three interconnect for you?
You know, that's the only thing I'm trying to discover and learn and to share. Freelancing, I didn't understand this at first, or I didn't know this, but as I started to put myself out there as a writer, as I started building this business, I realized that it took a lot of spiritual and emotional stillness, and maturity in some things that I needed to grow in order for me to be successful. And that's probably the most
Yeah.
uncomfortable part.
Yeah.
Having to 'cause this is true for all of us, right? All of us in this freelancing world, there's a lot of rejection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you
You'll
know,
be
that's
rejected
normal. It's
forever. Just get used to it. It's fine. It's welcome it because you're one step closer to a yes.
exactly, exactly. And it's so interesting because I'm finding 2 things. One, John, my husband and I did college ministry for a number of years. And so it's the same thing in ministry. One, you experience a lot
Okay.
of rejection, a lot of
Okay.
rejection. You have to, and I think,
Wow.
you know, I was used to that kind of rejection. So that doesn't bother me as much, but this was
Okay.
different, you know.
Interesting.
And then, yeah, it is. Most people don't really want the truth. That's just reality.
Yeah.
But you know, that's another thing. And secondly, marketing is much like evangelism. You know, when I would
It
go on
is.
campus and I would do Bible studies, right? You would, I would cater my Bible studies to my audience. So, you know, depending, like there were
Mhm.
times where I was
Mhm.
leading a Bible study, um, the soccer team, like some women on the soccer team. That was very
Yeah.
different than the Bible study I was leading with a group of freshmen that I met, you know, in a dorm, in a campus
Right.
dorm, right? Because it's a different audience, and depending on as you continue to build that relationship, you understand what their barriers are, and then you start implementing certain scriptures and, you know, certain books of the Bible to help, you know, get through some of those barriers, and it's the exact same thing in marketing. So I'm learning, and I'm still learning how to implement the things that I've learned as a college minister, basically, into my marketing, um, which has been a really fun, cool experience. And I think
Wow.
the other part you talked freelancing, um, you know, I was just thinking about it this morning. Um, the key word in freelancing is the free part, the freedom part, and not
Right.
being
Right.
tied to right, not being tied to an employer and not being tied to a certain schedule. Um,
Mhm.
and And I have found that with freelancing, I have to constantly reassess my goals because sometimes my financial
Mhm.
goals come at a cost that's just not worth it, at least not right
Mhm.
now. Uh, and so
Yep.
just, you know, I think at the beginning I was like, okay, if I can make X amount of money in X amount of days, then that's great.
Sure.
But going that hard was actually causing me to not be present with my family the way I desire to be and what's my conviction and you know and how I want to be with my family. So it's like, okay, well, if this goal is keeping me from the thing that is supposed to be giving me, right? I'm supposed to be freelancing so that I can be with my family, so that I can be with my kids and be
Sure.
present and do the things I desire. But if it's keeping me from that, then we need to reassess these goals and we need to reassess this strategy. So learning how to balance that has been interesting, but good.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about freelancing. You can literally work 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. You can do 4 days if you want. Or during times where you already have clients lined up for the next few months, you don't even have to do a whole lot of work, especially once you put those email automations in place. It's like you're kind of living the freedom based life. And you're like, is this too good to be true? Like, am I supposed to be doing more? But you're making full time income doing like less than 20 hours a week. which is ideal for us as mothers. And I think it's ideal for fathers too. You know, America pushes so much capitalism and demand going 40 to 60 hours a week at work. But when we look at the ancient times, what I see in the text a lot of times, especially with Abraham and Sarah, they were sitting side by side a lot of the time in the scriptures. They're like sitting under a tree talking, and then the servants and everybody else is doing some of the work. And so you just see this theme throughout scripture where the family is consistently together, which is something that was taken from us in America. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
it's awesome. So just one more question for people that are like on the fence about freelance writing, about write your way to revenue. What advice would you give to them if they're like, I kind of liked writing when I was in second grade, but I just don't know if I can do it, or I don't believe that there's clients out there. What would you say to these people?
There you have to be realistic with what you want and how long it takes to get there. I think those are the 2 main things that can sometimes conflict and make it,
Sure.
difficult for you to push through. Depending on depending on the skill sets you already have, depending on how much you need to learn and how much you need to grow as a writer, as a marketer, um, and what kind of writing you want to do, you have to give yourself first, you gotta give yourself time to to build content and to learn
Mm,
the writing that you right? And then you have to give yourself time to like outreaching and getting those that first wave of income and that first wave of contacts and leads and things like that. But the reality is that most businesses take like what 2 to 3 years to make a profit with writing
yeah, yeah.
because the startup cost is like so minimal.
Mhm.
You can start a legitimate income within like 3 to 6 months. Seriously.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say, I've been writing for 3 months, and I landed my first client in December. Um,
Mhm.
just clients in January, so my income has doubled in 2 months, and I should be on par to making the income I desire by the summer, by May. That's my goal.
Yes,
It
yes.
was to be quicker, but like I said, I had to kind of readjust my priorities, and there's just a lot of
Yeah,
newness to
yeah.
it takes a little bit longer, but it's like within 6 months, I should be making the income that I desire, starting my first starting income. Um, and that's just enough to sustain us here in Tanzania, which obviously being here gives me a bit more financial flexibility than being in the States. So
Right.
there's that to consider as well. But I think just like
That's true,
giving
that's
yourself
true.
yeah,
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because when you do have that freedom, when you're living in a part of the world that's 60% cheaper than what you're used to in America, it definitely gives you that freelance momentum. Because I think my first year freelancing was like the whole start of year, like trying to make it work, like, woo, because when you're paying those American bills, it's like, oh,
exactly, and that's really intimidating. So I think, like, if you're still in the States and you're wanting to build, a writing business, I think it's better to think of it as a side business to start with, at least for your first year, because you're
yeah,
likely still working a 9 to 5, you're likely still have a family, and, it just making sure that your goals and your expectations are in alignment with reality, um, and yeah, and just in that consistency, and having that alignment with reality and the expectations helps you to be consistent. You don't feel like you're
right.
constantly failing because $5,000 in your first month. It's like, no, it's not realistic, right? Like,
Um,
um, so, um, so yeah, it's 100% possible. Slowly but surely,
Yes, yes. There's actually a verse that just came to mind in Proverbs where it talks about he who gathers wealth little by little comes to success and becomes rich. Doing it little by little, staying steadfast, just, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just continue working, continue writing, and have fun doing it. Like, because you're getting into writing to have fun because you love it.
Yes, 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 yes. It is work, but it's like finding that space where it's something that you enjoy, and it also can provide the finances that you need. And that's where I feel like copywriting has really just I have fallen in love with copywriting because it does that.
Yeah,
You're a storyteller, but you're storytelling in a way that, helps people buy into whatever it is that you're selling. And so it's just
sure.
it's a win-win.
Yes, I love copywriting too. That's also the bulk of what I do. It's just so much easier. You can make a good amount of revenue and then you don't have to write like a 3,000 word blog. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
Awesome, awesome. So, Jakell, this has been an incredible interview. Now, if people want to follow along with your journey, I know you guys have a YouTube channel, Melanated Truth. Can you tell the audience a little bit
Yes.
about where
Yes.
to follow you?
So the best place is on YouTube at Melanated Truth. I also have an Instagram, melanated_truth. We are still we're still figuring out what we're doing. It's still very much
Yeah,
new
that's
and building.
good.
But yes, that's
Awesome.
yes, and we talk all things. Melanated Truth is basically um where we just talk about the scriptures in light of the truth of who we are. So yeah.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. So this has been an incredible interview. We will be launching another Write Your Way to Revenue in March. The link for that will be in the description. I'm not sure of the exact dates yet. It will most likely be mid-March for those of you who are interested in that. Any final words, Jaquel? It was phenomenal having you on. It's so great talking to you. We can talk for hours, but let's just cut it short because we'll be on here today talking.
um, Man, if you are wanting to, if especially if you're looking to come to the motherland, come to Africa, and you're trying to get something started, like I think just having something online, writing, I don't know any other ways you can make money, maybe coding and stuff like that. But if writing is your thing, and especially if you're wanting to come over here, it's just a great way to just go ahead and have something coming in when you come here because I'll tell you, like getting your work permits and getting established and all that just takes time. Everything just takes time. So having some money coming in before you come to the continent is super, super helpful.
It really, really is awesome. So this has been phenomenal. You guys can follow her at the link in the descriptions. You can check out her blog. Also, if you're a writer and you just want to jump in and start writing so you can travel abroad, live a freedom-based life, and create a legacy for your family, check out the links in the description. Shalom, shalom, fam.